Atlanta Airport at 10:47 a.m. is packed, with people during a -12-degree snowstorm. At Carousel 4, the crowd pushes past a 74-year-old black woman kneeling helplessly, watching her red flip phone stuck under the machine. A security officer shouts loudly, chasing her away like she is homeless. Darnell Cole, a 38-year-old single dad carrying a $4.217.83 medical debt for his daughter Kira's asthma, steps forward. He only wants to finish his shift and go back to his drafty attic apartment. But trouble starts when he chooses to protect the old woman from his boss, risking his only job. Why would a poor man at his lowest point give up his last $15 to help a stranger? Can he survive the threat of being fired, harsh words from coworkers, and a snowstorm shutting down the city? Where will this wild journey lead Darnell and his daughter when the truth about the old woman comes out? To understand that moment, you need to see Darnell's life 2 hours earlier. His apartment sat above a laundromat on Maple Street. Wind slipped through a crack in the window, whistling all night like a tired ghost. Kira, his 6-year-old daughter, slept under 2 blankets and her winter coat. Her breathing rattled through the thin wall. Darnell knew that sound. Her asthma was flaring up again. On the kitchen table sat a pile of medical bills. The top one showed a number he had already memorized, $4.217.83. He had sold his television and picked up every extra shift the airport would give him. Still, the number never moved. Darnell worked security at the airport. The job paid little, but gave his daughter health coverage. He could not lose it, not with winter squeezing every dollar from his pocket. He kept one thing from his old life besides Kira: a silver pocket watch, scratched and worn, ticking inside his coat. His father gave it to him before he died, saying a person's words should tick as steady as that watch. It was the one soft thing left in a hard world. That morning, he kissed Kira's forehead before a neighbor came to watch her, then walked 3 blocks through deep snow to catch the bus. Long shifts and quiet dinners of rice and beans had become normal. He told himself this was only for now. It did not feel that way yet. At the airport, the storm had grounded half the flights. Passengers argued at gate kontash. Darnell walked his usual route past baggage claim, checking badges, staying quiet the way guards learn to stay. Then he saw her. An old woman knelt on the tile floor near Carousel 4, knees pressed into melted snow. Her hands reached under the moving belt, chasing a small red flip phone spinning just out of reach. People stepped around her. Nobody stopped. A rolling suitcase clipped her shoulder. She kept reaching, fingers shaking from cold, and something deeper. Darnell felt his stomach twist. It was the same look Kira got when her inhaler ran empty. Before he could move, another guard got there first. Marcus Vance, the shift supervisor, marched over. His boots hit the floor hard enough to turn heads. He grabbed her arm without asking and pulled her up. "Ma'am, you can't be down there. This isn't a shelter," Marcus barked. His voice cut through the noise. "I just need my phone," she finally whispered. "It fell. Please." Marcus wasn't listening. He had already decided who she was. A homeless woman sneaking in from the cold, he assumed, based only on her worn coat. He started walking her toward the exit, where wind howled against the glass. Darnell's chest tightened. His jaw locked without him telling it to. He watched the woman's knees buckle slightly with each step. He thought about Kira, about his job, about the $4.217.83 he still owed the hospital. If he lost this job, there would be no more insurance. His feet did not move. Not yet. Marcus shoved the doors open. Snow blasted in, sharp and stinging. The old woman gasped, her thin coat no match for the cold. She stumbled forward, one hand still reaching back. "Please," she said again, so quiet the wind almost ate the word. "My son. I need to call my son." Something in Darnell finally snapped loose. He stepped forward, boots crunching through slush. "Marcus, hold up," he said, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. Marcus turned, annoyed. "Cole, mind your own post." She's not a threat, Darnell said. She's scared and cold. That's it. Marcus leaned in close, his voice low. You want to lose this job over some random lady? Think about your kid, Cole. The words hit harder than the wind. Darnell's fists curled at his sides. He pictured Kira's inhaler, nearly empty on her nightstand. For 3 long seconds, he said nothing. He looked down at the old woman's hands. They shook from cold, not anger. She clutched an empty pill bottle like it was the last solid thing in her world. Darnell thought of his father's watch, ticking quietly in his pocket. He thought of the words his father once said. A man's worth is what he gives, not what he keeps. His fear did not disappear. It just stopped being louder than his own conscience. I've got this, sir, Darnell said, stepping gently between Marcus and the woman. Let me handle it. Marcus's eyes narrowed. A few travelers had started watching. He forced a tight smile for them, then stepped back with a warning glare. Darnell guided the old woman away from the wind into the small break room reserved for staff. Her legs trembled with every step. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The radiator hissed in the corner, losing its fight against the cold. Darnell pulled out a folding chair and helped her sit. Up close, her eyes were warm and steady, nothing like the confused stare Marcus had assumed. Storms bend old oak trees, she said softly. But they rarely break the roots underneath. Darnell blinked, caught off guard, reminded of something his own father used to say. Ma'am, are you hurt? He asked. Just my pride, she said, managing a tired smile. And I really do need that phone. My son doesn't know I landed yet. Her hand shook harder now, still gripping the empty pill bottle. Darnell recognized the label. Blood pressure medicine. You need to eat something first, he said. Give me a second. He walked to the vending machines, counting his cash. $15. That was everything left until payday, money meant for Kira's lunches. He hesitated only a moment. Then he bought a small cup of hot clam chowder instead, along with a bottled water. It used almost all he had. He carried it back, steam rising from the cup. Here, he said, handing it to her. Eat first, then your pills. Her eyes glistened as she took the cup, cold fingers wrapping around the warmth. Why would you do this for a stranger? She asked quietly. Darnell shrugged, glancing toward the window, where snow kept falling harder. My daddy used to say kindness isn't about who deserves it. It's about who needs it. What's your name, young man? She asked, studying his face. Darnell Cole. I'm Hattie, she said. Hattie Jenkins. Before either of them could say more, the break room door swung open hard. Marcus stood there, a printed form gripped tightly in his fist. Cole, you're suspended, Marcus announced, tossing the paper on the table. Effective immediately. Darnell stared at the notice. Kira's medical bills flashed through his mind, along with the rent due in 11 days. He reached up slowly and unclipped his badge, setting it beside the paper without a word. There was nothing left to argue. Come on, Miss Hattie, he said gently. Let's get you somewhere warm. Marcus muttered something behind them, but Darnell did not turn around. He had crossed a line he could not uncross. Strangely, his chest felt lighter. Outside, the storm had only grown worse. Wind screamed between parked cars, throwing snow sideways. Darnell led Hattie to his old Chevrolet Impala, its paint chipped and rust creeping along the wheels. The engine groaned twice before catching. Cold air poured from the vents and refused to warm. Darnell shrugged off his jacket and draped it over Hattie's shoulders. You'll freeze, she protested weakly. I run warm, he lied, teeth already starting to chatter. They drove through streets buried under fresh snow, tires slipping on hidden ice. Hattie stayed quiet, watching the city pass like she was memorizing it. The building came into view, brick walls streaked black from years of rain. He helped Hattie up 2 narrow flights, her hand gripping the rail with every step. Inside, the apartment felt only a little warmer than the parking lot. Kira sat on the couch under a pile of blankets, watching cartoons on a small, cracked television. She looked up the moment the door opened. Daddy, who's this? Kira asked, more curious than confused. "This is Ms. Hattie," Darnell said. "She's staying with us tonight. Her phone broke, and she can't call her family." Kira slid off the couch, dragging her stuffed bear, and held it out toward Hattie. "You can borrow Mr. Buttons," Kira said. "He helps when I'm scared, too." Hattie's breath caught for a moment. She knelt slowly, ignoring the ache in her knees, and accepted the bear like it was something fragile. "Thank you, sweetheart," she whispered. "That's very kind of you." Something tight in Darnell's chest loosened. For a moment, the cold apartment felt less empty. He gave Hattie the only bed, ignoring her protests, and took the couch, its broken springs digging into his back. Just as the apartment settled into quiet, heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs outside. A fist slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Cole, open up," a rough voice shouted. Darnell knew that voice. Gable, his landlord, a man who counted every dollar twice and forgave nothing. He opened the door slowly, keeping his body between the hallway and his sleeping daughter. Gable's eyes narrowed when he spotted Hattie's coat by the door. "You running a shelter now?" Gable sneered. "Rent's due Monday. Full amount, or you're all out." "I'll have it," Darnell said quietly, though he had no idea how. Gable's eyes lingered on Hattie's worn coat, judgment plain on his face. He stomped back down the stairs. Darnell closed the door and leaned against it, breathing slow. Whatever came next, tonight 3 strangers were warm under one small roof. Later, after Kira fell asleep, Darnell sat on the floor by the broken sofa, turning Hattie's flip phone under the lamplight. The screen was shattered, cracks running edge to edge, the charging port hanging loose. He worked with a small pair of tweezers, the same ones his father once used on watches. His fingers moved slowly, careful not to break anything more. Outside, wind rattled the loose window frame, steady against the quiet. Around midnight, he gave up. The phone needed a part he did not have. He set it gently on the table and closed his eyes. Morning came gray and heavy. Darnell woke stiff and cold, his neck aching from the broken springs. Kira still slept, breathing steady for once. He checked on Hattie. She slept peacefully, one hand resting on the bear Kira had given her. He counted his money again, spreading crumpled bills on the counter. Nothing left from the $15 he had spent. He needed $45 for the phone repair, or so the shop near downtown usually charged for parts like this. His eyes drifted to the small wooden box holding his father's watch. He opened it slowly, thumb tracing the scratched silver. He thought about walking away, letting Hattie try a payphone somewhere. But the way she thanked Kira so gently kept pulling him toward doing more. He wrapped the watch in cloth and slipped it into his coat pocket. Whatever this cost him, it was still just a thing. Kira was not a thing. He left Hattie a note, then bundled up against the cold. The streets of East Point sat buried under nearly 10 inches of snow. He walked a mile and a half downtown, boots crunching with every step. Silas's repair shop sat wedged between a shuttered bakery and an empty storefront. Inside, warm air smelling of solder finally touched his frozen face. Silas looked up from behind the counter, turning the flip phone over twice, testing the loose port with one finger. $45, Silas said flatly. Cash only. Parts like this aren't cheap anymore. Darnell's stomach tightened. He had $0 left. He reached into his coat and pulled out the small cloth bundle holding his father's watch. He unwrapped it slowly, the silver catching the weak light. His hand hesitated over the counter, memories flashing faster than he could stop them. "This is worth more than the repair," Darnell said quietly. "Can you take it instead?" Silas examined the watch, checking its weight and its steady tick. He named a fair price, enough to cover the repair. Darnell nodded, throat tight, and slid the watch across the counter. He told himself he would earn it back. Watching Silas place it in a drawer felt like losing something heavier than metal. "Give me 20 minutes, Silas said, already reaching for his tools. Darnell sat on a worn bench, watching snow pile against the glass. He thought about Kira waking up and about Hattie waiting to reach her family. Back at the apartment, Trouble arrived without warning. A sudden gust tore the loose window frame wide open. Freezing wind poured in, scattering papers and knocking over a lamp. Kira, half asleep on the couch, sat up coughing hard. Her breathing turned sharp and wheezy. Her small chest heaved, lips turning pale. She reached weakly for her inhaler, hands shaking too much to grip it. Hattie rushed from the bedroom the moment she heard the coughing. She dropped to her knees beside the little girl, her own heart racing. "Easy now, sweetheart," Hattie said, keeping her voice steady. "I've got you. Look at me." She remembered years teaching children in rural Alabama, calming panicked kids through all kinds of trouble. She pressed her palm against Kira's back, feeling her frantic lungs. "Where's your medicine, baby?" "Show me where." Kira pointed weakly toward the couch cushions. Hattie dug beneath the fabric until she found a spare inhaler. She shook it twice, just like she remembered from raising her own children. "Breathe with me now," Hattie said softly. "Slow, in through your nose." She guided Kira through the inhaler, counting each breath out loud, her own hand shaking. The minutes stretched long before Kira's breathing finally steadied. Hattie wrapped a blanket around the girl, pulling her close and humming an old song, the same one she once sang to her own son. The apartment door burst open just as Kira's breathing settled into something normal. Darnell froze in the doorway, eyes locking on his daughter wrapped safely in Hattie's arms. Fear crashed through him so sudden it nearly buckled his knees. "What happened? Is she okay?" His voice cracked on the last word. "She's okay now," Hattie said gently. The window blew open. She had an attack, but we got through it together. Darnell dropped to his knees, pulling Kira into his arms. He pressed his lips to her forehead, feeling her breath finally slow. Relief hit him so hard his eyes stung. "Thank you," he whispered toward Hattie. "Thank you for staying with her." Hattie placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. "Family looks after family," she said. "Even the family we just met." Darnell wiped his eyes, a little embarrassed at how close he came to breaking down, then tucked blankets around her small frame. He pulled out the newly repaired flip phone, its screen clean and whole again. He handed it carefully to Hattie, who stared at it like it was something precious. "It works now," Darnell said. Silas fixed the port and the screen both. Hattie's fingers trembled as she powered it on and dialed a number she had known for 30 years. The call connected almost instantly. A man's voice answered, tight with worry, loud enough that Darnell could hear it from across the room. "Mom? Mom, is that you? Where are you? I've been calling for hours." Tears filled Hattie's eyes as she spoke, her voice breaking with relief. "I'm here, Franklin. I'm safe. A kind young man helped me." She spoke quickly, explaining just enough, her free hand squeezing Darnell's arm. When the call ended, Hattie set the phone down slowly, wiping tears from her cheeks. She turned to Darnell with a look he could not quite read. "You gave up something precious to fix this phone," she said. "I saw the empty spot in your coat pocket this morning." Darnell's jaw tightened. "It's fine. It was just a watch." "No," Hattie said gently, shaking her head. "It was never just a watch. And I promise you, what you gave up will find its way back." Before Darnell could ask what she meant, sudden noise erupted from the stairwell outside. Heavy boots pounded upward, followed by raised voices. Darnell's stomach dropped. He knew both voices. Marcus Vance and Gable stood in the hallway when Darnell opened the door, both wearing looks of righteous anger. Marcus held a folded paper tightly in one fist, waving it like a weapon. "Cole, you're officially fired," Marcus announced, loud enough for the whole floor to hear. "Harboring a vagrant. It's all on record." Gable pushed forward beside him, holding up a shiny new padlock. "And you're 2 days late on rent. Everyone's out by morning. This building isn't a charity." Neighbors peeked through cracked doors, whispers spreading down the hall. Darnell stepped into the doorway, blocking their view of Kira and Hattie. "You don't know anything about her," Darnell said, his voice low but firm. "You judged her before you even asked her name." Marcus laughed coldly. I know exactly what she is. A homeless woman you dragged in for sympathy. Darnell's hands curled into fists, restraint the only thing keeping him steady. Kira watched from behind him, learning either courage or fear from this moment. He chose courage. Say what you want about me, Darnell said evenly. But you don't get to disrespect her in front of my daughter. Gable scoffed, stepping closer with the padlock still raised. I'm running a business, not a shelter. Pack your things tonight. The hallway grew tense and silent. Neighbors watched from cracked doorways, judgment plain on several faces. Then, faintly at first, a new sound rose from the street below. Engines, deep and powerful, growing louder with each second. Darnell frowned, glancing toward the frosted window at the end of the hall. Through the glass, dark shapes pulled up along the snow-covered curb. 3 black cars rolled to a stop in perfect line, engines still rumbling. Doors opened at almost the same moment. Polished shoes stepped carefully onto packed snow below. Marcus turned toward the window, his confidence slipping. Gable lowered the padlock an inch, curiosity replacing his anger. A tall man in a dark coat stepped out from the middle car, moving with a hurry money rarely allows. His eyes locked on the window, where Hattie stood watching. That's Franklin Jenkins, someone whispered down the hallway. From AeroLink. I've seen him on the news. Darnell's heart pounded, confusion mixing with something close to fear. He glanced at Hattie, who simply smiled, unsurprised. Footsteps thundered up the stairs moments later, faster than before. Franklin appeared at the top of the stairs, coat dusted with fresh snow, eyes scanning until they found his mother. Mom! His voice cracked as he crossed the hallway in a few long strides. Hattie stepped forward, arms opening despite her tired body. Franklin pulled her into a tight hug, tears slipping down his cheeks. The hallway fell silent, every eye on the reunion. I was so scared, Franklin whispered against her shoulder. The airport said you never checked in with your driver. I'm here, Hattie said softly, patting his back. I'm safe, thanks to this young man and his daughter. Franklin let his mother go and turned to Darnell. His eyes carried gratitude and something sharper too. You're the one who helped her? Franklin asked, his voice still thick. I just did what felt right, sir, Darnell said. Anyone would have done the same. No, Franklin said firmly, shaking his head. Not anyone would. He turned toward Marcus and Gable, his face going cold. Marcus straightened his jacket, suddenly aware how small his badge looked now. You're the man who tried to throw my mother into a snowstorm, Franklin said, his voice edged with anger. AeroLink holds major stakes at that airport. Expect a call from your director within the hour. Marcus's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Franklin turned to Gable, who clutched the padlock like it might protect him. You threatened to evict this family over a 2-day delay in a snowstorm? Gable's throat bobbed. I didn't know who I was housing, sir. Rules are rules. Rules without kindness are just cruelty. With paperwork, Franklin said flatly. I'm buying this building through my company by morning. You're no longer the manager. The hallway stayed silent, snow falling softly outside. Darnell stood frozen, watching the scene rebuild itself. Kira peeked out from behind his leg, small hand gripping his shirt. Franklin knelt slightly, meeting Kira's eyes with a gentle smile. You must be Kira. My mother told me you shared your bear with her. Kira nodded shyly, holding up Mr. Buttons. He helps when people are scared, she explained simply. Franklin's face softened. He turned back to Darnell with something like wonder mixed into his thanks. Mr. Cole, Franklin said, I don't think you understand what you gave up today. My mother told me about the watch. It was just a watch, sir, Darnell said. She needed help more than I needed it. That watch, Franklin said quietly, shows exactly the kind of character this world runs short on. He reached into his coat and pulled out a business card, pressing it into Darnell's hand. Come to my office tomorrow morning. There's something I need to discuss with you. Darnell stared at the card, fingers numb from cold and shock. He nodded, still unable to take in the sudden turn his life had taken. That night, after Franklin's cars disappeared into the snowy streets, the apartment felt different. Warmer, despite the same broken window and thin walls. Kira slept peacefully, tucked between clean blankets Franklin's staff had quietly dropped off. Darnell sat by the window, watching snow fall over the quiet street. He thought about the watch, Kira's breath finally settling, the strangers shaking hands. Everything connected back to one small choice at a crowded airport. The next morning arrived bright and clear, the storm finally gone. Darnell dressed carefully, borrowing a clean shirt from a neighbor who insisted after hearing about the night before. He held Franklin's business card tightly as he walked toward downtown Atlanta. AeroLink Logistics filled a glass tower near the city center. Darnell felt out of place, his worn boots echoing against the polished floor. A receptionist guided him up to Franklin's corner office. Franklin stood by the window, city skyline behind him. He turned and offered a warm handshake instead of a stiff greeting. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Cole," Franklin said. "Please sit down." Darnell lowered himself into a leather chair, unsure why he had been called. Franklin pulled out a thick folder and sat across from him. "I looked into your situation," Franklin began. "Your daughter's bills, your work history, everything." Darnell's stomach tightened slightly, unsure whether to feel grateful or exposed. "Sir, I don't need charity. I just did what felt right." "This isn't charity," Franklin said firmly. "This is an investment in character, something money alone can't buy." He slid the folder across the desk. Darnell's eyes caught words like franchise ownership and medical trust fund. His breath caught. "I'm offering you full ownership of an AeroLink branch here in Atlanta," Franklin explained. "You'd run daily operations, build your own team, create your own future." Darnell sat frozen, disbelief washing over him in slow, heavy waves. "Sir, I have no business experience. I was a security guard 3 days ago." "You showed leadership when it cost you everything," Franklin said. "That matters more than any degree." He explained a medical trust for Kira, covering every future treatment at the city's best children's hospital. Darnell's eyes stung, gratitude tightening his throat. "Why would you do all this?" Darnell finally asked. Franklin's face grew distant. "My mother raised me alone after my father died. People judge her too, back when we had nothing. Someone once helped her, the way you helped her yesterday." He paused, gathering himself. "I promised myself I'd repay that kindness someday, however it came into my life. Yesterday, it came through you." Darnell wiped his eyes, overwhelmed. He thought about Kira, warm meals, proper medicine, a future that suddenly felt possible. "I accept," Darnell said, his voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Truly." Franklin smiled and stood to shake his hand firmly. "Call me Franklin. Partners don't need formal titles." As Darnell got ready to leave, Franklin pulled a small velvet box from his desk and placed it in Darnell's palm. Darnell opened it slowly, his breath catching the moment he saw what lay inside. His father's silver pocket watch, polished and gleaming, ticking steady, just like always. "I sent someone to the repair shop this morning," Franklin explained. "Some things shouldn't stay away from the people who love them." Darnell held the watch tightly, thinking of his father's words about giving, without expecting anything back. Weeks later, Darnell stood in his new office, sunlight streaming over the city. Kira colored quietly nearby, her breathing steady and strong. He thought often about that snowy morning, about Carousel 4 and a stranger shaking hands. Marcus lost his job once the story spread. Gable was pushed out once Franklin's company took over the building. But mostly, he thought about second chances, about kindness returning in ways nobody could predict. He started hiring people from his own neighborhood, struggling single parents just like himself. Hattie visited often, bringing something small for Kira, smiling at Darnell's growing success. She never let him thank her too much. On quiet evenings, Darnell sat with his father's watch in his palm, listening to its steady tick. He finally understood his father's words about worth measured by what you give. Snow fell softly outside his new window that winter, but the warmth inside never faded. Kira laughed from the next room, healthy and safe. Darnell smiled quietly, grateful for a choice made in a crowded airport. Kindness, he learned, always finds its way home, even through the coldest storms.